Hello YouTube, it's Jay. Today was the big day, so let me tell you what I've had done to the table because it's going to change the way I play the game a little bit. So number one, we have Simona's 860 HR cloth on it. Very fast. Well, faster than the 860, not as fast as 760. So let me tell you about the Simona's cloth and real quick. So Simona's 760 is very fast. It was created specifically, well, it used to be Simona's flagship cloth, and it was the one that everybody bought. It's very fast, and it's phenomenal. I love 760. It is now classed as being the straight pool and one pocket cloth because it's so fast, and so you have, when you're trying to control shots in close quarters, they move more than you would expect. So it takes a lot more control for those games where you're doing small movements. After 760, when 9-ball started to gain popularity, Simona's created 860. And 860 was specifically created for games like 8-ball and 9-ball, where you're moving the cue ball a lot, and so you needed a little bit slower cloth to keep it controllable, but you also still needed the Simona's quality. So 860 was created, and that was back like around late 90s, early 2000s that 860 started to show up on the scene. Well, 860 is great cloth. It's slower than 760, but the problem with it is that in a pool hall environment, it wears very fast. So in order to cater to the pool halls, Simona's created 860 HR. And 860 HR is by nature in between 860 and 760 as far as speed, but the HR stands for high resistance, meaning that it's a more durable cloth. It takes longer before it wears out. It tends to get less picks. It tends to have less burn marks on it. It's designed for heavy play. Okay, so most of the tournaments now are using either 860 or 860 HR. This is HR, but I also had some other things done to the pool table as well. The rails I had the Brunswick rails replaced with Artemis Intercontinentals. Now, their Artemis rails are fantastic rails, but in the past you couldn't put them on a Brunswick table without altering the angle of the subrail. So the subrails on Brunswick are 24 and a half degrees, and the subrails on the other brands of table are 23 or 23 and a half. So when you put Artemis rails, you had to change that angle so that it would bring the nose of the cushion up to the right height. Otherwise, as it wore out, as the rails wore out on a Brunswick table, the balls would start hopping. As they hit the rail, they would bounce off. And that's a very bad thing. So in the past, you didn't really have an option without actually changing your table fundamentally. And once you made that change, going back to Brunswick rails was extremely difficult. Well, now it's the same angle, and the Intercontinentals are the same angle as the Brunswick rails, or so all the research says. So I went ahead and put Artemis rails on this. They are faster than the Brunswick rails. They're made out of kind of the same material, but the difference is in the way that the rails are shaped. So Brunswick rails tend to give more than the Artemis rails, but it's not because the rails are different. It's the same material. Or similar materials. It's because of the shape of the rail. This has the Brunswick rails tend to have a small downward angle to them, where the Artemis rails are straight across. So it causes the ball to bounce a lot more. And it also causes that swerve that you see when you're looking at it. Now, as a result of the cloth and the rails, this table is playing long. Okay, so if I get, and I haven't actually played a rack on it yet. I did hit a ball to make sure that it was functional. So here's the 3-rail shot that I always shoot, the same one you've seen me shoot 1,000 times. And you'll see that it's not going in the corner, it's hitting about half a diamond over. So it's a half a diamond longer than it was. And that's going to take some adjustment for me. My banks are going to be off while, banks and kicks will both be off while I'm adjusting the rails. Now, I had something else done that's really important. So the pocket facings on the end of so technically these are the rails and these are the bumpers. On the end of the bumper is a thin piece of and basically it's a cushion. It's a little bit different than the rail material. It's not the same material. Now the Brunswick ones are pretty hard. They're very firm, and so when a ball hits them, they don't give as much, which means that the pockets won't reject a ball that's hit firmly down the rail. And you've seen that in pro play, the diamond tables, well, the pockets are a different angle, and it causes the balls to hang a lot more. Well, I wanted to get as close to that as I could without buying a diamond table and without spending $1,000 on getting the rails remanufactured to fit. So these rails are still the original angle of the Brunswicks. It's still 4 1/8 inches across and 4 3/8 at the top outside point. But now that material here is now a medium density material, so it gives a little more, which means it will reject balls more. Because if you think about what I said when I was talking about how rails compress, when the ball comes in, it's going to compress the rail and create a hard edge on the front, which, if the ball is hit hard enough to compress, is going to cause it to rattle in the pockets more than it did. See that rattle? It wouldn't have rattled on the old table. This table is now much more difficult. Between the three things, the cloth, the new bumpers, and the new pocket facings, this table probably went up a full difficulty level in play. So we'll see how that happens when I play here in a minute. But I wanted to give you just a quick idea of what I've done to this table, because it does change the way you play shots. The older table, if I had to follow a ball around the table, I could do it fairly easily without having to worry about it. Here, it's going to go long off that rail. You saw that kind of spin wide off the rail, which changes the angle it's going, and it's also faster, which means that if I was trying to stop for a ball out here and I hit it that speed, now I'm in trouble. So those are the changes that I had done to the pool table. All right, so I just got done playing for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. I was wrong. The table is probably 3 balls tougher. It's not any tougher when you're coming straight into the pocket, but because of these facings, when it comes down the rail and hits, man, I hung so many balls, especially in the sides. You're gonna see me hit in here and rattle in the sides. I'll put some video in here so you can see it. So here's a quick montage of some of the shots that got rejected. Now, don't get me wrong, I missed these shots. The point here is that before I replaced these rails, every one of these shots would have gone in. They're the pocket facings just make this tough. So to adjust for this, I'm going to have to be more accurate. I'm going to have to aim for the center of the pocket, and if I'm going to hit at speed, I'm going to have to aim for the center of the pocket and not touch the facings. They were just getting kicked out like this constantly. So I'm definitely going to have to be more accurate. That's the key here. I can't take it for granted and shoot against the facings and expect it to go in. I like it. It's tough. This table is now much tougher than it was. I do need to get used to a couple of things. I need to get used to the rails bank long around the table, but they bank short back and forth, which is kind of strange to me. I get why it's happening. It's because they're thicker. So when it comes in at that, or not thicker, but because they're stiffer, when it comes in at the angle at the, remember I was talking in the rails thing about the 30-degree angle. So at 30 degrees, these are not bending at all. My old rails did, which is what's making it longer when I go around the table. But going shorter on going just one rail, that way, this way, it's playing maybe even a little bit shorter than mine did, which means that it means that the rails are giving, but the difference is because of the shape, and that's why that's happening. They're the same material, so when you hit into it, it still flexes just like it did, and because the cloth's new and rails are new, it's causing the ball to come off shorter on one rail. But on multiple rails, first of all, you've got some slide going on, so you can see the cue ball swerving between the rails, and that's just because the cloth's new and it's slick, so the cue ball's skidding everywhere. The second thing about it is that, so when cloth is new, a table will be more forgiving on the shots down the rail when they hit they'll be more forgiving when they hit the pocket faces. So this table is going to tighten up a lot, and it's going to be interesting. The other thing is that the brake that I've been using doesn't work now. Because the cloth is faster and the rails are faster. So I'm going to use the cut brake until I get the speed back down on my brake, because my brake, the one that I've been using, that you've been seeing me use from over here with a little bit of draw, yeah, that's not working now. So so I'm going to go to the cut brake until I figure out the speed and the adjustments I need to make. Other than that, I mean, the table plays fantastic. Great job by the guy who recovered it. If you're in Atlanta, his name's Gabe Chapman. He's good, and did a much better job. I've had 3 or 4 different people recover the table over the last 10 years. Gabe was actually the first one that set the table up in the first place. The others did a fine job, but they just didn't have the attention to detail that he does. And I kept finding, loose screws and bolts, and there was one screw that was put in the wrong place. So overall, great job by Gabe. I recommend him. The table plays nice. It really does. It plays nice. I will have a break and run for you tomorrow. Today I'm just kind of letting you know about this, and I'm playing around on it. It's a different table. It is hard. This table is tough.